Internet. A stream online.
TNTRadio.live. Today's News Talk Radio. TNT. You're with Patrick Henningsen on today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Welcome back, folks. Great segment with Basil Valentine, the political editor at TNT. Versatile as usual, Basil. Great on the Middle East. Of course, this is the big story right now. That's what's dominating U.S. headlines. So what's dominating the U.S. political conversation right now. Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, is also in the firing line. He is absolutely a biased party in all of this. He's come straight out of the gates, basically touting his political identity and his fealty towards Israel. How could he possibly be objective? And this is part of the reason why we're facing this disaster that we're facing right now. And also it's part of the reason why the Democrats, by Joe Biden's reelection campaign, is stuck in the mud on this issue of Gaza and Israel. Israel's becoming more and more unpopular, not just globally, but with Americans. And that's saying something. Think of all the resources, the millions, tens of millions, or hundreds of millions, in fact, in the case of IPAC and the other lobby organizations, how much they plow into media, into politics in order to get the public behind Israel unconditionally. Well, it seems like they've gone a little bit too far in the last 6 months, so much so they will never be able to recover their reputation that they once had, tenuous as it may be. So right now, you got a little dance going on. Let's read between the lines. This is what the U.S. are saying. Proof is in the results. U.S. cautiously welcomes Israeli moves on Gaza aid. So it took this death, or you could say the murder. They absolutely hunted down and mowed down these 7 aid workers into 3 different vehicles. Survivors fled to one vehicle. The drone shot it up. Whoever survived got into a 3rd vehicle. The drone shot it up. So basically they pursued, hunted down, and absolutely slaughtered these 7 workers. And it took this incident to get people to pay attention, strange as that might be. So now the U.S. is putting some preconditions on how, as you heard the clip at the top of our news headlines, John Kirby and the rest of them saying, well, we're concerned about how Israel is dealing with the Hamas threat. Forget about these civilians, okay? It's all about the Hamas threat. No, they've been killing civilians on an industrial scale. That's the whole problem here. So right now, the United States is saying they're welcoming, listen to this, welcoming the latest efforts to allow humanitarian aid in the Gaza. So lo and behold, after 6 months, they're allowing some trucks in. Before October 7th, 400 plus articulated lorries full of aid daily going into Gaza to help feed, clothe, and provide medical aid and so forth to the population there daily. Why? Because it's under siege, and this is what's needed for society to function. After October 7th, Israel announced it's going to shut down water, electricity, food, aid, all of that came to a screeching halt. And then they started bombing them, okay? So I mean, how wrong is this? On what level of wrongness is this? It's a scale that we haven't had to face as a human race in the modern era. And so now it's interesting. Now Israel's letting some trucks through, 100 trucks through, some of them coming from Jordan. Okay, when are they going to normalize aid transfers over the Rafah border crossing? This is in the south with Egypt. That's the big question. And so Tony Blinken saying, well, as far as Israel's concerned, really the proof is in the results, and we'll see how those unfold in the coming days, says Tony Blinken, who's not the most exciting and flamboyant diplomat in the world, who's absolutely been a complete enabler for Israel from the beginning, continues to be so. But anyway, this is all as a result of the attack on this aid convoy. So apparently Washington says this is a grave mistake. Israel's saying, yes, these things happen in war, says Benjamin Netanyahu. He actually said that. These things happen in war. 200 plus aid workers and United Nations employees killed by the IDF since the beginning. No tears were shed. No outrage was registered for any of that. But here we have this situation. Why? Because this was a very important PR operation. The World Central Kitchen is not just any NGO. Okay, they're made for television, fronted by this celebrity chef, Jose Andreas, and they were there to change the public opinion as to Washington's own role as an enabler for genocide in Gaza. Okay, that's why the U.S. is going to build a jetty there, a pontoon jetty, followed up by a permanent port there to deliver aid. A lot of people believe that was also to evacuate Palestinians out to help with the ethnic cleansing, ostensibly. Okay, that plan might still be on the table. But from the Israeli position, and this is where you got to read between the lines, from the Israeli position, this was about putting U.S. military assets on that green line of contact separating North and South Gaza. Why? To protect Israeli assets. From who? From Hezbollah missiles. Okay, very simple. And who knows what other missiles or drones might be coming from Yemen, is an example. Okay, so Israel's using the U.S. to provide little extra insurance so that it's not going to get hit in these areas. So very clever and very manipulative. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people in the U.S. that will accept this. They'll willfully do it. Why? Because in part they see the PR value in it. So Israel will get something, which is they get a kind of a casus belli United States in there as a sort of set piece to keep attacks away, to potentially repel attacks from Hezbollah and so forth. And then on the U.S. side, they get this great public relations theater of the World Central Kitchen. But somehow all of the wheels came off of this wagon this week. And the question is why? The question is, why did they attack this aid convoy? I mean, certainly they could have done without this. This has been bad PR for Washington and also bad PR for Israel. And they've already, I think, gone ahead and fired one of the sort of key people within the Israeli military establishment regarding drones. Okay, so this is what they're saying anyway. Take it with a pinch of salt, that Tel Aviv has dismissed 2 of their commanders and reprimanded scores of others over the, quote, grave mistake of the targeting of the aid convoy in Gaza. So the IDF issued a rare admission of guilt, extremely rare. Mark this down, folks. You won't see it often. Firing 2 senior officers, getting the sack, and censuring and rebuking a bunch of others there for errors in decision making. So that's a new euphemism for the mass killing, is errors in decision making. Okay, a brigade fire support commander and brigade chief of staff were dismissed, fired on over the incident on Monday. 3 other high-level officers were reprimanded. So what is this? Were they due to be decommissioned or moved? Who knows? But I don't know if this is of any significance. It could be. It could be. This is really a massive fail for Israel. The fact that this happened at all is really a disaster. So anyway, this is now Washington having to renegotiate this whole situation with the American people, the media, sort of the moderate media, sort of asking questions now, middle of the road centrist media. They're starting to push back a little bit more. So the spokespeople are having to actually answer questions. The media is starting to do some journalism. It's taken 6 months, but here we are. So I think we're going to see some movement on this. There might eventually be some kind of a ceasefire agreement, but Israel is the masters at dragging their heels. They're the masters, and just when you think you've got them in a corner, they'll wiggle their way out and create another situation. So anyway, Blinken's playing the role of a go-between between Tel Aviv. Where do his loyalties lie? More with Israel or more with the United States? I'm going to say with the former, more with Israel. And it's been exemplified by his behavior since the beginning of this crisis. So he's saying Israel needs to make sure the population in Gaza is protected from its strikes by maximizing every effort to protect civilians. We've heard all this before, and he also continues saying, we just can't have so many people caught in the crossfire injured going forward. I mean, that's an understatement, Tony Blinken. But anyway, this is what we're getting used to here. So having to look like they're doing something moral, having to look like they're being responsible, engaged in some responsible statecraft here by the U.S. diplomatic corps led by Tony Blinken. And anyway, this tense phone call, we're told, between Biden and Netanyahu. I do know that the Israelis do not like being told what to do by the United States and could just as easily issue some kind of a veiled threat. I mean, I'd be careful if I was Biden, actually. You don't know where this could go. If you throw Israel or Netanyahu under the bus, something could happen, maybe on U.S. soil. I will leave it there and not speculate, but this is high stakes games. Israel regards all of this as existential. So even every single detail, we don't know the way that they're looking at this operationally, that if they're being forced or coerced or pushed or ordered to pull back on what they're doing by Washington, there are hardliners in Israel that will translate that potentially as Washington's undermining Israel's security and its future. So what actions would the Israeli state take if they convince themselves in their consensus of their deep state that this president or this administration or somebody in the U.S. is threatening their future? What actions would Israel take if it believed that that's the case? I'll leave that out there as a rhetorical question for people to kind of crunch that in your brain for a while, and maybe we'll revisit that question on another segment, probably with Basil Valentine, who nobody is better placed to give an assessment on that question with his great knowledge of the JFK assassination and so forth. I'm not making any insinuations, folks. None of that. I'm just saying it's very interesting. High stakes game. We're here. Let's take a break, however, with the network with TNT. When we come back, hopefully we'll connect our great friend and cohort, Joseph Arthur, from the Technicolor Dreamcast show here on TNT. A whole lot more coming up after the break. Stay with us.